Cephal is a gamer who just lost his max-level character during a massive war event he organized. But all his friends had a blast, so he has no regrets. Apparently, his war was so legendary that the game's dev team sent him an offer. Excited and curious, he clicks accept without reading the fine print. Big mistake. A moment later, Cephal finds himself in a strange room, surrounded by terrified people. And to make matters worse, his family jewels are missing. He quickly realizes he's somehow inside the body of his character, Lufa's, corrected from Luff, and the crowd seems petrified. Trying to stay polite, he asks what's going on, but the moment Lufa's opens his mouth, an immense pressure pins everyone face first to the floor. Outwardly, Lufa sarcastically asks if everyone normally greets newcomers by kissing the floor. Inside, Cephal is panicking because he has no clue why this is happening. Then it hits him, Lufa's has an intimidation skill that's triggering all this chaos. After a few tense minutes of fumbling, he finally manages to calm it down. By then, the poor people have been stuck to the ground long enough to contemplate life choices. Once things normalize, Lufa's approaches an elf to demand an explanation. The elf faints on the spot, classic, but eventually, Lufa's gets the answer. 200 years have passed since she was sealed away, and the demon lord ORM is still alive. To defeat him, the kingdom attempted to summon another hero, which explains how Lufa's ended up here. So yes, Cephal really was sucked into the game, and he's thrilled about it. But he realizes it must be terrifying to face him in Lufa's body. Better keep a safe distance before someone has a heart attack. Finally, Lufa's addresses everyone, acknowledging their fear. Understandable, since she almost conquered the world once, but assures them that her days of conquest are over. Oh, and by the way, she has zero interest in being their new hero. Lufa's tells everyone they can just summon another hero because she's definitely not sticking around. The king asks where she plans to go. Calm as ever, Lufa says she just wants to take some time to appreciate this world, but she might return if the situation gets serious. Without much trouble, Cephal somehow figures out how Lufa's wings work and starts flying like a pro. After all, Lufa's was Cephal's main when Escape originally launched, and thanks to the game's quirky system, actions by top players became part of official lore. With all the time and effort Cephal spent leveling Lufa's, she's recognized as one of the most terrifying figures in this world. He could have stayed at the top of the leaderboards forever, but that would have been boring. So, Cephal orchestrated a massive war, splitting all top players into light and dark factions for an epic showdown. The result? Lufa's was eventually sealed in a subspace after her defeat. While it was a blast for Cephal, the rest of the world experienced it as, well, reality. Now, nearly everyone fears Lufa's for her past deeds. Meanwhile, the original goal of slaying Demon Lord ORM was entirely ignored. He's still alive, but that's not Lufa's concern, she'll handle him later. Right now, she's focused on exploring the game-turned-reality. Her first stop, her old, mouthful of a base of operations. Despite 200 years of dust, it's still impressive. Lufa's perches on the throne while Cephal reminisces about the good times with his friends here. He remembers chatting endlessly about random nonsense, only to realize it was all in a group chat before. Why does Cephal remember events as if he were actually there? He's not sure, but there's no time to ponder because Lufa's notices someone approaching, strange, since the base should be empty. It's a blue-haired girl named Dena, who's ecstatic to see Lufa's, having waited 2 whole centuries for her return. But Lufa's has no idea who Dena is. Ouch. Dena is crushed, she was once Lufa's most loyal advisor. Lufa's honestly doesn't remember ever needing an advisor. Then it clicks, when Cephal built this base, he added Dena as an NPC in the background just to make the place feel lively. Now that the game world is real, she somehow gained consciousness. Feeling a little guilty for leaving her alone for 200 years, Lufa's plays along and reassures Dena that she could never be forgotten, thanking her for protecting the base. Dena is overjoyed. With pleasantries out of the way, Lufa's realizes she's out of the loop on the world's current state. She asks Dena for a quick history lesson. Dena happily obliges. After Lufa's was sealed, the 7 heroes founded their own nations. For have died of natural causes, while the 3 long-lived ones are still around. Lufa's wonders if these heroes are still friends or just NPCs now, and plans to visit them eventually. Dena also explains that Demon Lord ORM is still alive because the heroes failed to defeat him after sealing Lufa's. In other news, Dena mentions the 12 heavenly stars are still around, though most have gone their separate ways. These stars were rare, powerful monster NPCs Cephal collected to serve as elite generals. Lufa's asks for updates, and Dena knows the location of 6, but 2 have joined ORM's demon army, trying to get back at the heroes who sealed Lufa's. Lufa's is a bit disappointed that some of her minions turned on her, considering the original feud wasn't that serious. Still, it gives her something to do, so at least boredom is off the table. Lufa's initial plan is simple: explore the world for fun and figure out whether the 3 remaining heroes are players like her, or just NPCs. But first, she needs to round up the 12 heavenly stars. She can't have them causing trouble for no reason. She asks Dena for the location of the first star. Pulling up a map, Dena points to a place called Svel, where one of the heroes lives and the heavenly star Aries has been trying to invade for months. Excited, Lufa heads out immediately, but Dena yells for her to stop. She can't just leave without preparations. For one, Lufa has no money. Dena would help, but inflation over 200 years has made her stash practically worthless. Lufa argues she can earn money along the way, but Dena warns that no one will do business with the legendary conqueror. Lufa insists no one will recognize her after 200 years, but Dena reminds her that races like elves exist, and many are sure to know her, especially if the kingdom has issued a public warning. If Lufa wants money safely, Dena suggests a simple job: adventuring. She directs Lufa to the trade city of Ydalar, but warns that her dark wings will draw attention. Lufa stuffs them into her oversized cloak, grumbling about how uncomfortable it is, but desperate times call for desperate disguises. At the Adventurers Guild, Lufa feels nostalgic, calling it a den of misfits and degenerates, since she was once an adventurer before founding her dark nation. She soon realizes it's weird to feel nostalgic for a place she technically hasn't visited before. Dena notices her lost expression and asks if something's wrong, but Lufa brushes it off and heads to the job board. Scanning the board, Dena spots a job paying 3,000 coins: find a bunch of lost cats. Lufa agrees it's a good deal, but she doesn't want to spend a week chasing cats. Luckily, they soon spot a hunting job that looks promising. The job pays 1,500 coins, and all Lufa and Dena need to do is hunt a few orcs, perfect in Lufa's eyes. Orcs have a 3% chance of dropping meat, which boosts max health when eaten. Looks like it's time for some HP farming. Later that day, they arrive at the village that requested help. The village chief, a weary old man, explains that the orcs have been terrorizing them for ages, kidnapping women, killing men, and destroying everything. He begs them to end the menace. Dena cheerfully assures him that Lufa will take care of it without a doubt. The chief is immensely grateful. They track the orc den in the forest, spotting 2 orc lookouts outside. Lufa readies herself, and realizes she hasn't checked her stats since arriving. Good news, all her max level abilities are intact. Bad news, mentally, this is very different from killing mobs in a game. She activates one ability, conjuring a dozen swords, and launches them at the orcs. The resulting carnage is gruesome. Strangely, Lufa feels calm. Soon, the orc nest is alerted, and dozens of orcs surround her, including a massive leader. Any normal adventurer would panic. Not Lufa's. The orcs move so slowly that she doesn't even need more swords. She charges, chopping through orcs at top speed. The orc leader is bewildered as his men's heads fly off. Pausing, Lufa casually tells him, "Hey, I just wiped out your entire squad. What now?" The orc king rampages, trying to crush her, but he's no match. One slow fist bump later, a gaping hole appears in his head. Basically, Lufa is way too strong. After the massacre, Dena harvests some orc corpses, thrilled to find one's tenderloin still intact, bonus loot. According to Dena, an orc's vitality is stored in its tenderloin. If it's undamaged, eating it transfers that vitality to the consumer. She offers to prepare some for Lufa once they return. Using her teleportation ability, Dena creates several portals and stores the orc corpses, something Lufa hadn't realized she could do, but definitely handy. Next, it's time to rescue the kidnapped villagers. To Dena's surprise, all the women appear perfectly healthy. Lufa isn't phased. In the game's lore, orcs are surprisingly polite to ladies. They're just ugly with abysmally low charisma stats, so they skip courtship and go straight to kidnapping. Dena is horrified at this mental image, but it doesn't change the fact that the women were kidnapped. To ensure no orc survives, Lufa smashes the cave with a giant rock fist. Dena offers to erase the girl's memories of the ordeal, but Lufa reacts like it's the weirdest suggestion ever. She asks if Dena can really manipulate memories. Dena confirms, and casually adds that she could even overwrite a person's personality if she wanted. Creepy. Lufa decides there's no need, the girls just need to be safely returned. She summons a golem to carry everyone back to the village. The mission goes smoothly, but Lufa wonders why no one attempted it before. Dena explains that most people wouldn't risk it, even though the orc tenderloin vitality alone would have been a great incentive. Apparently, the warriors of this era are underwhelming. She tells Lufa that the nation which summoned her is called the Sword Kingdom and asks her to guess the level of its strongest swordsman. Lufa, assuming he must rival her strength, is shocked to learn that he's only level 120. At first, Lufa is baffled. She knows plenty of players in the game reached level 1000 alongside her. But Dena reminds her those were elite players from the previous era, the sweatiest of sweats. To hit level 1000, you'd need to fight constantly, every second of every day, dedicating your entire life to power grinding. The people of this world simply can't do that, at least not without dying in the attempt. Suddenly, Lufas understands why reaching the level cap here is so unrealistic. In the game, grinding was fun; in reality, life matters. Eventually, Lufas and Dena return to the village. The villagers are overjoyed to be reunited, and the women are incredibly grateful to Lufas. She's happy to see them so cheerful, though if they knew her true identity, their joy might vanish instantly. The village chief presents the agreed-upon reward, which Dena confirms is all in order. Before leaving, the chief asks if it's okay for the village to keep Lufas Golem as a guardian. Lufas says she doesn't mind, and it can protect the village from future orc attacks. The chief is so touched he assumes she must be a messenger of God, but that's a hard no. The villagers ask her name. Lufas tries to reveal it, but Dena quickly gives them a fake identity instead. Lufas is annoyed, but they've been over this; revealing her true identity would cause mass panic. With travel funds secured, it's time to head to SW. Lufas isn't thrilled. It's only to stop one of her 12 heavenly stars, Aries, from causing more trouble. She also wants to check if the surviving heroes are really her old companions. First stop, meet Migres. As they approach the city, Lufas notices glowing lights floating around. She asks Dena what they are. They're specks of mana, proof the land is magically rich. Dena is visibly excited; they're near the nation of Skull. Lufas, meanwhile, is unimpressed. To her, it just looks like a regular water town. They head to the front gate, where a guard barks that anyone entering Skull needs a passport. Lufas is stunned. Passports? She worries they might be denied entry. Dena, however, is completely unfazed. With her document forging skill, she casually presents 2 passports, one for herself and one for Lufas. The guard checks them and, convinced they're real, lets them pass. As they stroll through the streets, Dena explains that Skull was founded by the wise elf Migres and is renowned for its magical knowledge. The city is rich in ambient mana, attracting mages and scholars eager to study magecraft. Dena asks their objective, and Lufas says she plans to visit Migres. She has a lot to discuss. Dena panics, thinking Lufas wants to storm the castle, but Lufas assures her it's just a peaceful visit. After all, Aries has caused Migres plenty of trouble, so she still needs to apologize. Before that, Lufas wants to visit a library to learn more about this world's history. As they ask around, they meet a man named Grants, who notices they're new in town. While everyone else knows the libraries are in the Eastern District, Grants has free time and offers to guide them. Dena introduces herself as a traveling merchant with Lufas as her suspicious employee. Lufas immediately stomps her foot mid-sentence, because seriously, who introduces a companion as suspicious? Grants notices Lufas' suspicious aura but doesn't judge. Lufas is grateful. Walking through the lively city, Dena comments on how cheerful everyone is. Grants agrees, though he notes that since Aries has been attacking for years, most people avoid settling here permanently. Lufas feels slightly guilty; it's kind of her fault, and Grants notices, but assumes she's just uneasy about the threat. He reassures her the city is safe. The entire lake surrounding Skull is a golem created by Migres, and every attack by Aries has been repelled by the city's guardian golem. Lufas scans the lake and confirms it's indeed a golem. Level 500 might not impress her, but 1,000,000 HP? That's insane. If Migres could create something like this, he's clearly skilled. Grants directs Lufas and Dena to the city's Montreal, which will quickly get them to the Eastern District. From there, they'll continue alone. They thank him, and he wishes them luck with the library. Glancing at his stat sheet, Lufas notes he's level 82, low by her standards, but top tier for fighters of this era. Dena urges Lufas onto the Montreal, and she notices she never saw these in the original game. Once at the library, Lufas heads straight to the history section to learn what happened in the 200 years she was sealed. Among the shelves, she finds a few unusual books claiming the 7 heroes were idiots for sealing her away. Strange, Migres, one of the 7 heroes, runs the city. Dena reminds her that Migres isn't a dictator; people can write what they want. Besides, the populace doesn't really view Lufas as evil. While terrified at first, over 2 centuries, fear faded, and some realized her rule wasn't that bad. According to one book, Lufas, the mysterious Blackwing, appeared 200 years ago and united the world under her rule almost instantly. She was strict but not a tyrant, and many were actually better off under her reign. Humanity eventually rejected her and sealed her away to reclaim autonomy. That might have been fine, except her presence kept the demons in check. Once sealed, the demon army took advantage, rising to destroy humanity. The heroes tried to stop them but fell short, and slowly, human lands were lost to demons. Now, the world teeters on the edge of annihilation. Lufa's internally freaks out. That fun war event she started as a game just triggered a chain reaction that nearly destroyed the world. The library trip makes her realize just what she needs to do next. Lufa tells Dena they need to find Aries immediately. But moments later, the city shudders violently as a massive earthquake rocks the foundations. Alarms blare, and all available mercenaries are called to the borders to prepare for an imminent attack. Surveying the damage, Lufa asks Dena if earthquakes this severe are normal. Dena says they're practically unheard of. Lufa quickly deduces that this must be the work of Aries, who's clearly launching a full-scale assault. No time to waste, she summons a glider and orders Dena on board. As they fly toward the chaos, Lufa can't wrap her head around it. Aries was always a harmless sheep monster. Why would he invade a nation repeatedly? Could this all be because she was sealed away? And why does she even remember him, considering she never interacted with him in the game? Minor mysteries aside, her priority is stopping him. Back when Aries was a young lamb, he wandered the forest alone and ran into Lufa. Surprised to see a rainbow sheep, legendary, born once every 500 years, she approached, only for it to recoil and cry. She noticed its tears and guessed it had been hiding from monsters and humans alike its entire life, its wool worth more than gold. She sympathized but asked, "What's the point of all these tears?" She told it if it wanted to survive, it had better learn to fight, or else spend its life drenched in sorrow. The sheep took her words seriously and attacked to prove its determination. Impressed by its fighting spirit, Lufa spared it and asked it to join her. She explained she wasn't at full strength yet, but one day she would conquer the world, and she wanted Aries to be her first companion. When she asked its name, it shook its head. Lufa gazed at the stars and named it Aries. Meanwhile, Grants and his men rush out to intercept Aries' forces, signaling the start of a full-scale assault. When Grants arrives at the front lines, he sees a massive army of monsters slowly marching toward the city gates. Panic sets in. There's no way he can hold them off until the main army arrives. That earthquake earlier, clearly Aries' declaration of war. Despite his hatred for formalities, Grants has always followed the rule, no attacking without declaring first. Soon, the city's advanced forces arrive. Mages and archers unleash volleys to thin the monster ranks, giving the soldiers time to charge. Grants mows down monsters like a one-man lawnmower, but his subordinates aren't as strong, and many are being slaughtered. It looks grim. Just as things near disaster, countless ice spikes rain down from the sky. Turning to the city, the soldiers see Migres and Leia, the water golem. Relief floods them. They know their guardian deities have arrived. Migres orders Leia to attack, and in moments, dozens of monsters are obliterated. Meanwhile, Lufa watches from a distance, prepared to step in if needed. But with Migres and Leia handling the threat, she can relax. Curious, she checks Migres' stats to see if he's still as formidable as when they played together. To her surprise, he's only level 500 and suffers from a debuff called the Curse of the Vanquished. Lufa asks Dena about it. She explains that after the heroes failed to defeat the Demon Lord, all were cursed, sealing away half their power, hence Migres' reduced strength. If Migres can't use full power, he can't create more golems like Leia. That means if he falls, the city is truly doomed. Suddenly, the ground shakes as a colossal monster storms down from the mountains. It's Aries. After a tense standoff, Aries and Leia clash. Since Aries wields fire, Migres figures Leia should have the advantage with her water element. Leia launches a water spiral, forcing Aries to back off briefly, but he soon charges back with a massive fireball. At first, it looks like the fireball misses Leia, but Aries wasn't aiming for her. His true target, Migres, all alone. Luckily, Leia intercepts just in time, extinguishing the blast. Migres sends Leia out as a tidal wave to push Aries back, but Aries hops over it with his flame skill and heads straight for Migres. The barrier holds for a while, but since Migres is only half as strong as before, Aries cracks it. Just before disaster strikes, Leia sneaks up and puts Aries in a chokehold. The soldiers cheer, and Dena asks Lufa how this battle will end. Lufa shrugs. Leia will win the fight, but not necessarily the war. A lot of Leia's HP has been drained from tanking Aries' attacks, which was likely Aries' plan all along. He can't beat Leia one-on-one, so he intends to whittle her down over repeated attacks. Logical little sheep, that one. Lufa decides she can't let Aries' plan succeed. Grabbing Dena, she jumps onto the battlefield. Just as Aries is about to launch another blast, Lufa kicks him across the mountain range. Soldiers gape in disbelief at the sheer raw power, and Migres wonders aloud who could possibly be that strong. Even though Lufa still conceals her identity, Migres begins to suspect the truth from the way she talks. She doesn't confirm anything yet, promising only that she'll handle Aries and return for a proper discussion later. Before leaving, Migres warns her that someone behind the scenes may be manipulating Aries' thirst for revenge. Lufa nods and flies off. In front of Aries, he surprises her by speaking, something he never did in the game, only making sheep noises. Lufas, noticing he doesn't recognize her, activates her intimidation skill. The pressure instantly reminds Aries of his former master. But even standing right in front of him, he refuses to believe it's her, convinced Lufas died long ago. Lufas isn't sure either. Technically, she's reincarnated, but one thing is certain, this is definitely the body of Lufas' original character. Lufas doesn't want to waste time convincing Aries with words. She tells him that if he truly doesn't believe she's the real Lufas, he's free to test her strength, and as a courtesy, she promises not to hurt him too much. Aries hesitates. The woman before him looks like his master, but he convinces himself she must be a fake, there's no way she could have returned. He charges with full power. Lufas is thrilled, finally, a monster strong enough to survive her attacks. This is her first real fight. Aries pushes her back a few hundred meters, but Lufas stops his momentum effortlessly with one hand. She comments on how much he's grown over the past 200 years. He tries again, but Lufas refuses to budge and even calls him adorable for trying so hard. As a reward, she teases him with a hug, lifting him by his head and throwing him into the air. Not done yet, she flies after him and announces she'll lightly pet him, only to punch him with the force of a 10-ton truck, sending him crashing down. Before he lands, she flies beneath him and pets his chin, flinging him back up. The onlookers are stunned. They've never seen such overwhelming power. Lufas finally slams Aries into the ground again, leaving him battered, but he's far from finished. Brilliant blue flames ignite around him, his strongest attack. Lufas tells him to give it everything he's got. He charges at her, and with a huge grin, she intercepts him, resulting in a massive explosion visible for miles. When the dust clears, Lufas has stopped him effortlessly with the palm of her hand, and casually flicks him into the rocks. She asks if he still doubts her identity. Suddenly, Aries leaps from the rubble and transforms into his human form, apologizing for his foolish behavior. Lufas is shocked. She knew he had a human form but didn't remember designing him as a fanboy. Then she recalls a group chat where she and her friends jokingly gave Aries a feminine design, and he had agreed to it. 20 minutes later, Aries finally stops crying and apologizing. Lufas checks his stats screen. His level is unchanged from the game, but his abilities have improved significantly, proof of 200 years of effort. She tells Aries that she is on a mission to reclaim her 12 heavenly stars, and he is her first stop. There will be no excuses. Aries is glad Lufas came to get him first and readily agrees to join her mission once more. But he has a few questions, like who the blue-haired woman following her is. Dena can't believe he doesn't recognize her. She rushes up, locks eyes with him, and reminds him that she's been by Lufas' side the entire time. Suddenly, fuzzy memories return to Aries. He vaguely recalls Dena standing next to Lufas' throne. But considering her memory-altering powers, he's suspicious. From what he remembers, she literally never moved from that spot, so he assumed she was a piece of furniture, and now he's surprised to discover she can talk. Hearing Aries call her a piece of furniture, Dena sulks to the side in offense. Lufas chuckles, noting that she didn't recognize Dena at first either, but she's been invaluable since arriving. She asks Aries not to tease her too much. Lufas then asks why he tried to invade the city. Aries explains that he only did it to avenge Lufas for what humans did to her. After all, if she hadn't been sealed away, humans would have already been defeated and the world would be at peace. Lufas understands his feelings and appreciates his loyalty, but assures him she holds no desire for revenge against humanity. Recalling Migres' warning about someone manipulating Aries, Lufas asks him who planted thoughts of vengeance in his mind. Nervously, Aries admits it was a demon. Meanwhile, on the demon continent, that same demon is preparing to unleash his army to occupy SPO. He's been patiently waiting for Aries to weaken Livia's health before invading. His army is filled with monsters over level 80, confident nothing can stop them. He orders his forces to march on the city of Skull, intending to slaughter every human there. But suddenly, Lufas crashes down in front of his castle, annihilating every one of the demon's men instantly. The demon, Mars, doesn't know who she is, but can immediately sense her overwhelming strength. He decides he must confront her personally. Mars asks Aries why he suddenly stopped attacking, given his hatred for humans. Aries admits he still hasn't forgiven humanity for what they did to Lufas, but he now realizes that destroying them won't help either him or Lufas. In fact, the only ones who would benefit are demons like Mars, which is the last thing Lufas would want. Determined, Aries swears to stop Mars here and now. Mars isn't concerned. He expected this turn of events eventually. Now that Aries is no longer useful, he plans to eliminate him. Lufas tells Aries to sit this one out since he's still recovering from his earlier battle. Mars is taken aback. He didn't expect anyone this strong on humanity's side, but dismisses it, confident he can defeat her as one of the 7 demon generals. He begins charging his fire and ice powers, going into excruciatingly detailed explanations about his technique. Luffus, growing bored of his endless yapping, punches him square in the face with enough force to send him blasting away like a cartoon rocket. With Mars taken care of, there's nothing more for Luffus to do here, for now. But before leaving, she has questions about the 7 demon generals he mentioned. Aries starts to explain, but Dena pops out of a portal, insisting she handle it instead. Dena tells Luffus that the 7 demon generals were formed 8 years ago and comprise the strongest subordinates under the Demon Lord. Luffus is shocked to learn that Mars is considered one of the most powerful demons, despite appearing to be at most level 300. Dena continues, explaining that humanity wasn't the only side to weaken dramatically over the past 200 years. While the heroes were cursed and have since grown weak, they had already eliminated nearly all of the Demon Lord's truly powerful subordinates. Now, the only ones on Luffus' level are the Demon Lord himself and his son. Just then, Aries notices that Luffus didn't actually kill any of the monsters when she landed earlier. He asks if she plans to leave them alive. Luffus confirms that she does, believing it's wrong to kill creatures who haven't done anything to deserve it. Dena questions the decision, warning that sparing them could lead to future harm if they're left unchecked. Luffus has already thought of a brilliant solution. Using her power, she subjugates all the monsters in the area, bringing them under her control. Dena asks if she intends to bring all the monsters back with them, but Luffus doesn't want Migres to have to deal with such a massive task. Instead, she issues a command. All the monsters are to return to their natural habitats and avoid attacking humans without cause. Obeying her orders, the monsters wander off, free to live out the rest of their lives in peace. Satisfied, Luffus considers her work here done. Afterward, she heads back to the city of Spell to meet with Migres and provide an update. She explains that Aries is under control and that she has defeated the demon general orchestrating the attacks. Migres is relieved, but asks about all the monsters that had been under Mars' control. Luffus tells him she placed them under her command to ensure they wouldn't be a problem. Hearing everything Luffus has accomplished, Migres becomes certain of her true identity. He asks her to accompany him for a private discussion. Luffus hesitates slightly, anticipation running high. The player who had used Migres in the game was a top ranker and a close friend, and she hopes that the Migres before her is the same one she knew back then. As Migres returns to the castle, several nobles of Seville gather around him, feigning concern. They warn him to be careful, claiming that without him or Livia, the city couldn't hope to defend itself from invaders. Dena, however, notices that their words are hollow. There's no true concern behind their flattery. Migres passes by them with a look of resignation. When Luffus catches up to him, he remarks that she must be appalled by what she saw. These were supposed to be the city's protectors, yet their focus is solely on self-preservation, using flattery to secure their own safety instead of genuinely defending the people. Migres leads Luffus and the others to his office, assuring her that there is no surveillance here, so she is free to reveal her full form. Luffus obliges, spreading her wings, allowing Migres to confirm that it is truly her. Luffus feels a pang of disappointment. The look on Migres' face is one of sheer terror, suggesting he has no memories of being a player. This means she might truly be alone in this world. However, Migres misinterprets her expression as disappointment in his current state. He explains that over 200 years, a lot can change, people can grow stronger or weaker, and in his case, he has grown far weaker than he once was. He asks if she has returned to take revenge for being sealed away. Luffus calmly explains that her return is purely coincidental. The humans were trying to summon a hero and accidentally summoned her instead. Luffus begins to ponder what's wrong with this world's Migres. If he isn't a player, then shouldn't he oppose her? According to the lore she's learned so far, that's what she would expect. Then she realizes that Migres must feel guilty. If he and the other heroes hadn't sealed her away, the demons would have been defeated long ago. Being celebrated as a hero while blaming himself for humanity's near downfall must have been eating at him. Perhaps he has been seeking punishment for his perceived failures. Luffus reassures him, saying there's no point in beating himself up over the past. The truth is, he defeated a powerful foe and should take pride in that. He should continue forward on the path he believes is right. Migres is stunned. He can't believe Luffus is being so kind to him. He asks why she doesn't resent him, considering she was on the verge of unifying the world, only to be betrayed. Luffus responds that she holds no hatred toward him because the battle only took place in the game. She never truly experienced it. She wants to give a fair answer, so she tells him that if he and the others rose up against her rule, it was her own fault for being an inadequate ruler. Migres tries to argue that he still deserves to pay for what he did. But then he looks up and meets Luffus' face, filled with genuine forgiveness, as she tells him to stop blaming himself. Regardless of what happened, he is the hero of this country and must stand proud. Migres understands her point, though she could have phrased it better considering his wheelchair. Standing isn't exactly feasible. He has a brief flashback to the old days when he and Olith were best friends, recalling how much fun they used to have. Inspired by Lufa's words, he promises to take her advice to heart. Afterwards, Lufa uses her magic to restore Livia's lost HP. Migres thanks her, admitting that in his current weakened state, he wouldn't have been able to do it himself. Livia then returns to the water. Lufa apologizes for the trouble Aries caused, but he refuses to apologize himself, still holding a grudge against Migres. Migres asks what Lufa plans to do next. She tells him she will continue traveling the continent until she has reclaimed all her 12 stars. Dena informs her that the next target is Libra, the guardian of the Blackwing Grave. Lufa asks what the Blackwing Grave is, and Dena explains that after she was sealed, her followers worked together to construct the world's largest memorial in her honor. At the very top, all of Lufa's old treasures and loot were stored, with Libra acting as a protector against grave robbers. Lufa is puzzled, asking why anyone would risk fighting Libra just to steal a grave. Migres explains that it's not just the people's levels that have declined, legendary weapons have also been lost during the battle against the Demon Lord. The only ones left are those in Lufa's grave. Humanity has desperately tried to retrieve these weapons to aid in the fight against the demon army, but Libra has ensured that every attempt ends in brutal failure. Lufa acknowledges how frustrating this must have been for Migres, but unlike Aries, Libra is not doing anything wrong, she is simply expressing loyalty by guarding her master's treasures. Migres sees her point, but he makes a request. After Lufa retrieves Libra and her treasures, he asks her to leave behind anything she doesn't intend to use. It would be a huge help to him. Lufa agrees without hesitation. As they prepare to leave, Migres tells her he has something to give her. Though weakened, he still possesses considerable magical power. He casts a spell to hide Lufa's wings, sparing her the trouble of constantly covering them with her cloak to keep her identity a secret. Migres also provides Lufa with a new outfit, and she is truly grateful. This one allows her to move much more freely. On their way out, Lufa goes to find Gantz outside the city. At first, he's confused, unsure why such a beautiful lady is talking to him. Then, Lufa removes her glasses, revealing her identity as the person he helped earlier that day. Gantz is stunned. He had no idea she was this beautiful all along. Lufa explains that she came to say goodbye and to thank him for all his help. He wishes her safe travels on her journey. Just as she is about to leave, he hesitates and begins to ask if she is the same Lufa from the legends. But thinking better of it, he stops and tells her to forget he said anything. There's no way it could be true. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Mars has crash-landed in a forest. While flying, he realizes that the only being capable of hitting him with such force would be Lufa's Mayful. If she has truly returned, all of his plans are doomed. Suddenly, a woman approaches him, telling him that his role is over and that it's time for him to vanish like the pathetic puppet he is. With a snap of her fingers, Mars is erased from existence. The woman responsible looks strikingly familiar. She bears an uncanny resemblance to Lufa herself. The next stop for Luff was to pick up Libra, but the grave was over 500 kilometers away. Dena suggested that Luff could create a golem to give them a ride. Luff considered it, but said it would be faster for Dena to just teleport them there using her magic. Dena shook her head and explained that teleportation is mainly for personal use. While she could transport others, she needed their consent. Any unconscious refusal could lead to unpredictable, and possibly explosive, results. Plus, she was secretly looking forward to a pleasant road trip. She asked Luff to include a bath and a sleeping area when making the golem, so they wouldn't have to sleep under the stars. Luff, who had never made a golem like this before, was intrigued. Aries seemed thrilled at the idea, so she gave it a try. Waving her hand, she began the golem formation process and eventually created an RV. She even used some logs from the forest to craft furniture. Dena was delighted at the prospect of comfortable beds but requested some soft bedding as well. Luff looked around for materials and then remembered that Aries was a sheep. Well, you can guess what happened next. Finally, the RV was complete, and Dena reminded Luff that they hadn't named it yet. After a moment of thought, Luff decided on Tanaka. For some reason, it even came with its own promotional ad. After traveling for some time, night fell, and Dena suggested setting up camp. Luff agreed, but as soon as they stepped outside, Dena sniffed the air suspiciously. Following the scent, she discovered a natural warm spring hidden behind some bushes, a perfect bonus for their road trip adventure. Dena got ridiculously excited. She'd been dying to take a bath, but Luff didn't see the fuss since the RV already had a built-in bath. Dena insisted that a natural warm spring was way better. She grabbed Aries' hand and started leading him toward the spring, ready to jump in immediately. But Aries reminded her that, despite appearances, he was still technically a guy, so he would wait his turn. Hearing that reminded Luff that, despite appearances, she was still mentally a guy too. Once Dena submerged herself, she let out a huge sigh. "Nothing beats soaking in an open-air spring after a long day of travel," she said. She then called Luff to join her. Luff briefly considered making an excuse, but decided there was no point, so she undressed and stepped in. Before she could get fully in, Dena reminded her it was bad etiquette to enter the water without tying up her hair. Loose strands would float everywhere, and no one else would want to use the spring. Luff agreed, and Dena offered to help tie it up. However, Dena wasn't wearing a towel, and Luff didn't think it'd be right to look, so she told Dena to stay put. Luff got into the water first, and then Dena helped tie her hair to keep stray strands from floating around. There wasn't much they could do about Luff's feathers, though. They tended to molt in hot water. Luff apologized for the stray feathers, but Dena shrugged it off. "No worries. You barely ever get to spread your wings like this anyway, so enjoy it while it lasts." Dena noticed Luff seemed a little zoned out, but before she could ask why, her eyes landed on a group of adaptive frogs perched on a nearby rock. She grabbed Luff's attention and told her to take a look. Luff frowned. "Frogs? Really?" Dena explained that these weren't ordinary frogs. The green ones were male, the pink ones female. If there were more males than females, the males would fight to earn the right to, well, let's just say the loser had some unpleasant consequences. Then the last two males would play rock paper scissors, and the ultimate loser would turn into a female frog and accept their fate. Soffel briefly wondered if reincarnation had changed his preferences too, but nope. There was no way he'd ever volunteer for that, so he promptly dismissed the thought. A few minutes later, they returned to the RV, and Luff told Aries he could use the warm spring now. He emerged in his towel, tied his head up, and headed for a soak. The next day, the group finally arrived at Luff's grave. Luff gawked, not only at its massive size but also at the bustling city that had grown around it. Dena explained that countless adventurers had tried looting the grave for Luff's treasures. Merchants set up shop to sell equipment, more people kept arriving, and eventually a full-blown village sprang up. Now, Luff's grave had essentially become a tourist hotspot. Luff found it fascinating that all this had happened in just 200 years. She wasn't really bothered that people had turned her grave into a tourist attraction. Aries, however, was seeing red. He couldn't believe people dared disrespect Luff like this. He threatened to lay waste to the entire village immediately. Luff calmly told him to simmer down. She didn't want anyone dying for no reason, and suggested they head straight into the grave. As they approached the entrance, they ran into a group of adventurers who looked thoroughly worried. Apparently, a reconnaissance squad had been sent into the grave 2 months ago to map a new area but never checked back in. Naturally, everyone was starting to panic. This news only made Luff more eager to get inside and find Libra. She couldn't let anyone else risk their lives. The adventurers warned her against proceeding alone. "Whatever's in there," one said, "our squad had 50 of the nation's strongest adventurers, and they went missing. You three won't stand a chance." Luff smiled. "Thanks for your concern, but I think we'll manage just fine." As they stepped into the tunnels, Aries suddenly froze. He sensed something approaching. Moments later, a golem, one of the many Luff had mass-produced for battle 200 years ago, emerged from the shadows. Dena explained that several had been left behind after Luff was sealed, wandering the grave and eliminating any intruders they encountered. Luff assured everyone there was nothing to worry about. She didn't sense any hostile intent from the golem. These particular golems were designed to distinguish friend from foe, and it clearly still recognized Luff and Aries, so they were safe. But poor Dena wasn't so lucky. The golem immediately lunged at her. Aries and Luff assumed it simply didn't remember Dena, much like they had both initially forgotten her themselves. Luff wasn't about to let Dena get squished, so she prepared to destroy the golem. Before she could strike, the adventurer party from earlier, called Hawkeye, arrived, leaping in to save Dena. They were well coordinated and keeping the golem busy, but at level 150, it was far beyond their level 50-ish abilities. One solid hit from the golem, and they'd be toast. Not willing to let that happen, Luff asked Aries for help. He eagerly ran past the adventurers and delivered a flaming punch so powerful it sent the golem flying, and down for good. Once the dust settled, the leader, Jan, ran up to Aries, eyes wide. "How did you do that attack?" he asked, a little too close for comfort. Aries flushed, clearly flustered. Luff quickly stepped between them. "Tone it down a bit, Jan," she said. Jan sheepishly apologized, for crowding Aries and, well, for needing to be saved despite being the ones who came to save Luff in the first place. Jan introduces himself as a warrior, Nick as a light warrior, and Richard as a heavy warrior. Luff can't believe how horribly unbalanced their team is. Basically, it's all warriors except for Shu, who happens to be an archer. Since it's her turn, Luff introduces herself as a high-level ranger-class adventurer. When it's Dena and Aries' turn, they freeze, unsure what to say. Finally, they mumble that they're also rangers. Jan's face falls. He thinks Luff's party looks even more unbalanced than his own. Trying to be helpful, Jen offers to accompany Luff's party for support. She's about to politely decline, but Dena happily jumps in. We'd love the extra help. Everyone is relieved, and the party sets off down the hallway. With a mischievous grin, Dena explains to Luff that adventurers are mostly used to make life easier, at least until someone falls into a trap and dies. Meanwhile, at the top of the pyramid, the reconnaissance team that went missing months ago finally ascends the long staircase. They vow to claim the treasury of legendary weapons for humanity and their fallen comrades. But as they step onto the top floor, they're immediately confronted by Libra, who coolly orders them to leave in 10 seconds, or be eliminated on the spot. The adventurers try reasoning with Libra, pleading that they need the weapons to fight the demons, but she couldn't care less. When the countdown hits 0, she activates the Brachium program, sealing them in a bubble so they can be obliterated. Meanwhile, Luff is starting to regret letting Hawkeye come along. These guys are absolute fodder, and they aren't even smart enough to realize it. Every time they run into a golem, they get thoroughly wrecked. Luff keeps having to order the golems to stand down so they don't end up pancake food, but of course, the adventurers are convinced they totally beat it themselves. Luff quietly worries she's inflating their egos. Eventually, they reach the final guardian golem, and this one is no joke, level 600. Luff knows the adventurers would be folded instantly if they tried to fight it. She tells them all to stand back while she steps forward. The adventurers protest, claiming it's way too dangerous, but Dena reassures them, Luff has a plan. Reluctantly, they stay put. Luff approaches the golem and asks if it recognizes her. It definitely reacts to her face, but, classic dramatic guardian, it still attacks. With a single, smooth slice, she cuts it clean down the middle. As she heads toward the stairs, the golem calls out, "Welcome home." Luff thanks it for protecting the place for the past 200 years and tells it the assignment is over. The golem seems genuinely relieved to finally rest. With the final golem powered down for good, Luff starts heading up the stairs to confront Libra. The adventurers shout for her to stop, claiming it's way too risky to face Libra alone. They insist on going with her. Luff sighs and makes it crystal clear, if Libra chose to attack, they'd be obliterated instantly. In short, they wouldn't stand a chance of surviving. The adventurers shut up. Dena and Aries tell her they'll wait downstairs. They can't handle Libra's Brachium program either, so she's on her own. As she climbs the stairs, Luff wonders why she felt genuine sadness after destroying that golem earlier. It was her creation, sure, but to her past self, it should have been nothing more than pixels on a screen. Why is her brain betraying her with all these feelings? Luff finally reaches the top floor, where Libra is waiting to intercept the latest intruder. She orders Luff to leave within 10 seconds or face hostile action. Instead, Luff calmly removes her glasses and spreads her wings, revealing her identity. Seeing her, Libra freezes, her countdown halted as her circuits try to process the impossible. Her system begins to short-circuit from the logical inconsistency, and Luff gently tells her not to overthink it, for the sake of her processors, of course. Libra is already damaged, so Luff announces she'll be approaching to administer repairs. Upon hearing this, Libra's defense protocol kicks in. Since she hasn't recognized Luff as her master yet, she warns that one more step and force will be used. Luff keeps moving anyway, teasing, "What are you going to do about it?" Libra, interpreting the advance as hostile, activates her Brachium program, creating a massive airspace for battle. She dodges waves of gunfire and missiles with elegant evasive maneuvers, muttering under her breath about how dramatic Libra is being. Spotting an opening, Luff interrupts Libra's attack animation and goes on the offensive. Libra tries to shake her off with more gunfire, but Luff casually uses her wings to blow the bullets right back, disabling her guns. Libra then tries an arsenal of attacks, but nothing comes close to hurting Luff. Frustrated, she disables the current domain and activates a new one. Luff instantly recognizes it, Libra's ultimate, a domain expansion that ignores all defenses and guarantees a hit of 99,000 damage. Most would panic being in its range, but Luff. She's practically bouncing with excitement, finally, some real damage since arriving in this world. As Libra unleashes the violent energy wave, Luff feels it slam into her like a dump truck, but her HP easily absorbs the blow. With her logic units restored, Libra finally confirms that Luff is her true master. No more guarding the grave, it's time for a long overdue nap. Luff smiles, pleased with how smoothly it went. Now she just has to figure out how to explain all this to the adventurers without revealing her identity. She heads down the stairs, peeks around the corner, and sees only Dena and Aries waiting. The rest of the adventurers apparently got themselves lost or are busy pretending to be heroic again. Luff looks around, confused. Wait, what happened to the adventurers? Dena smirks. Oh, I just gave them some helpful false memories. She explains that she used her mind manipulation to make them believe they were the ones who defeated Libra. Luff freezes. She had forgotten Dena had mind control powers, and seeing it in action is absolutely terrifying. Nobody asks questions, everyone's happy. With the situation under control, Dena suggests heading up to the treasure vault to gather needed supplies. When they arrive, Luff is practically vibrating with excitement. Shiny gold, glittering gems, sparkling trinkets everywhere, she can hardly sit still. Dena chuckles. Ah, this explains a lot. You've always loved shiny things, which is why you hoarded so much treasure before. And now? Well, you're a little out of control. Dena turns to Aries. You handle the practical stuff while she's distracted. Luff protests, I'm perfectly capable of controlling myself around gold. A little while later, Dena and Aries finish gathering all the items they need. The rest is buried under piles of old weapons or useless gold, so leaving it behind isn't a problem. Before they leave, Dena asks Luff if she can gather all the golems in the area so they can be teleported back to base. Luff happily agrees, but then realizes Dena meant all the golems. Once that's done, Dena teleports every golem away. With nothing left to do, Dena suggests they hit the road. Luff hesitates, wondering if it's safe to leave the adventurers behind in their current, slightly clueless state. Dena assures her it'll be fine. A few minutes later, the adventurers wake up, fully convinced that they were the heroes who cleared the grave and defeated all the golems. Pride intact, ignorance blissfully preserved. Meanwhile, out in the forest, Luff and the others return to the RV. Before hitting the road, Dena tidies up Libra's clothes and sets her on a tree stump so Luff can talk to her. Luff powers Libra back on. The first thing she does is greet Aries and the unfamiliar lady standing beside him, then immediately apologizes to Luff for all the trouble she's caused. Before Luff can respond, Dena mutters, incredulous, that she can't believe Libra doesn't recognize her. Luff chuckles. That's my advisor, Dena, she explains. Libra is stunned. Her memory banks contain zero data on Dena. Undeterred, Dena leans in, trying to jog her memory, but Libra is adamant. She has never seen this mysterious advisor before. After running a thorough memory check, Libra does find a few damaged memory files that might contain information about Dena, but she has no way to access them for now. So, she decides to take Luff's word for it and temporarily acknowledges Dena as her advisor. It's hard for Luff to read Libra's thoughts. She's about as expressive as a brick wall, but there's no reason to doubt her loyalty. Luff explains that she's on a journey to reclaim all 12 Headmiley stars and asks if Libra would like to serve her once more. Libra responds that nothing would make her happier and that she's ready to devote every moment of her life to Luff's goal. Now that Libra is officially back on the team, Luff asks if she knows anything about the locations of the other heavenly stars. Libra apologizes, saying she has no useful information, having been stationed at the grave the entire time and completely cut off from the outside world. Turning to Dena, Luff asks the same question. Dena smiles and explains that roughly 2,000 kilometers away, there's a small village at the base of a mountain where Parthinos secretly lives. Luff is surprised. Why would Parthinos choose to live in a village? Dena clarifies, the village was created by Parthinos, who erected a powerful barrier to protect the defenseless monsters and plants from the outside world. Luff is relieved that Parthinos isn't causing trouble for humans. But then Dena adds that the mountain where the village stands used to be Luff's homeland. Luff sighs in disappointment once again. Some things just never get easier. On the ride back, Luff was drifting into a flashback of her past life as Sappho when Dena suddenly placed a hand on her shoulder. Hey, what's wrong? She asked. Luff explained that she had just been dreaming something important, or at least it felt important, though she couldn't remember a single detail. Shrugging, she decided to focus on the present mission and asked how much longer it would be until they reached their destination. They'd been driving for a while, so it shouldn't take much longer. But Aries had a few questions. If Parthinos drove all the other Heavenwing out of Vanaheim, where did they go? Dena answered that the Heavenwing now reside in Galah Horn, a city founded by Marek, one of the 7 heroes and the Sky King. Luff got the sense she might clash with the rest of the Heavenwing given her colorful character backstory. Still, if Marek was there, she needed to see if he remembered anything from the time they played the game together. By nightfall, the group arrived outside Galah Horn. The city was built along a cliff face, making navigation a nightmare, especially at night. Aries frowned. Why is it split so clearly into black and white sides? Dena explained that the nation was in the middle of civil turmoil. The Heavenwing with pure white wings thought they were superior to everyone else, which caused a major ruckus among the rest. Luff asked why Marek hadn't stepped in yet. Dena replied that Marek was trying to stay neutral to prevent either side from escalating, but controlling the chaos was easier said than done. Aries recalled that during Luff's reign, persecution of the Darkwing was prohibited, which Luff found strange. She had no memory of issuing such a decree. Dena explained that once Luff disappeared, the White Wing seized the chance to assert their superiority over the Darkwing, and, naturally, the Darkwing fought back. Luff felt a twinge of guilt. Maybe this little mess was kind of her fault. Recognition would be inevitable if she walked into town openly. Solution: cloak up and go incognito. When it was finally time to tackle the stairs, everyone groaned. The city was clearly built for flyers, not walkers, and Aries was not thrilled about the cardio ahead. But Libra had it all figured out. With a dramatic flair, she activated jet mode and, before Luff could protest, scooped up everyone, flying straight to the Darkwing side of the city. They landed safely, but the roar of a jet engine at night woke every Darkwing in the neighborhood. Naturally, a crowd assembled to see what the ruckus was about. Luff shouted at Libra for the noise, but Libra, as ever, only cared about Luff's opinion, everyone else's. Meh. The crowd still looked confused, so Dena introduced herself as a free trader and presented everyone as her companions. Luff followed up with a polite apology, assuring the residents that this would be the last nocturnal jet show. The people here seemed genuinely nice, and one of them happened to omen in. He invited Luff and the others to spend the night if they still needed a place to stay. Luff decided to accept since Aries looked utterly exhausted. Later that night, as she lay in bed, a terrifying nightmare struck, a flashback to her childhood. She remembered being mistreated by her father. Neighborhood kids had bullied her, and nothing was done until she fought back. Furious, her father beat her and ordered her never to leave the room again, declaring her a disgrace to their entire bloodline, all because she was born with dark wings. Then he went back inside to laugh with his wealthy white-winged friends, leaving Luff alone in a dark shed with no food. She hated how unfair life was, but at least one person cared, her mother. Late that night, her mother sneaked into the shed with some food. Even if it wasn't much, Luff was grateful for something to eat. Her mother felt horrible about her daughter's living conditions but was powerless, especially given her own frail health. Luff hugged her, reassured her that everything would be fine, and warned her to return quickly before her father noticed. She offered to escort her mother safely back inside. However, on the way, her father appeared, appalled that his wife had let Luff out. He ordered her to leave Luff and come to him at once. But Luff understood his true intention, punishing her mother. So she stood firm, stepping in to protect her. Her father punched her to the ground and dragged her mother away, leaving Luff alone in the cold rain to wonder why she was always treated this way, just because her wings were a different color. She realized the world was cruel, so she decided she'd have to save herself. Running away from home, she vowed that no matter what it took, she would grow stronger and put an end to all the suffering in this miserable world. Suddenly, Luff jolted awake. Libra appeared at her side, concerned because her heart rate had spiked. Luff reassured her that it was just a dream from the past, nothing to worry about. Libra accepted this and went back into sleep mode. These vivid memories and emotions, flooding into him since arriving, could only be the real memories of the original Luff. That meant this world contained real events outside his game. And with his soul now in Luff's body, he couldn't help but wonder, what happened to the soul of the original Luff? Over at the Demon Lord's castle, the 7 demon luminaries gathered for a meeting. But Mars was missing, so they assumed he was dead. Not entirely shocking, since he was the weakest of the luminaries, but they speculated whether Migres had taken him out, or if Aries had betrayed him. It would be really embarrassing if Mars somehow lost to Aries, but just then, the luminary Venus walked in and announced that she knew what happened to Mars. Everyone turned to look at her and asked what she'd been up to lately, since none of them had seen her for a while. She explained that she had been tracking the person who defeated Mars. The others were surprised and asked if she knew who it was. Venus admitted she hadn't gotten too close, risking her life wasn't exactly on her bucket list, but she did notice one striking detail: the person had beautiful black wings. The first name that popped into their minds was Luff. But logically, she shouldn't be alive. They all knew she was supposedly killed by the human heroes 2 centuries ago. They didn't think Venus was lying, though. If Luff really had returned, so the leader assigned Venus and Jupiter to keep an eye on Luff. The next morning, Luff and her group headed into town to discuss their plan, blissfully unaware that they were already being watched by some very nervous demonic eyes. Marek is still the ruling king here, but with all the internal strife, getting an audience with him is going to be tricky. For now, Luff suggests they just roam the capital and gather as much information as possible. She mainly wants to check on the living conditions of the Darkwing, so she decides to stay on that side. In that case, Dena volunteers to investigate the White Wing side, and Libra takes off for her own independent recon mission. Aries also plans to gather intel, but before he leaves, he shares something important with Luff. It's about one of the 12 heavenly stars, Gakaros the goat. Long ago, He apparently invited Aries to join the demon army, so he may already be allied with them. Luff thanks Aries and says she'll retrieve Kakaro's next, but for now, she wants to explore the city. Then she comes across a giant black temple. Curious, she wonders why anyone would build a black temple for the goddess of creation. Stepping inside, she finds a massive statue of herself. Naturally, she's confused, and the temple's caretaker notices. He asks if she's new in town. Luff replies, half amused, "I'm just surprised people would make a statue in honor of the world's biggest tyrant." The caretaker is a bit offended by the tyrant comment but understands why some might see it that way. History may look different to outsiders, but to the Darkwing, Luff was, and always will be, their savior. Luff is intrigued, so she asks him to explain more. He goes on to describe how Darkwing beings like himself used to face constant discrimination from the White Wing, forced to live miserable lives in slum-like areas, but Luff was different. She eventually conquered the Heavenwing nation and banned all discrimination, allowing Darkwing people to live with dignity for the first time. That's why they worship her to this day. Curious, Luff asks what they think of their king, Morak. The moment she mentions his name, the caretaker's face twists in disgust. To him, Morak is one of the biggest fools alive, a man calling himself a hero despite all the terrible things he's done. Elsewhere in the city, Dena is waiting for someone, growing increasingly frustrated because he's running late. Meanwhile, Libra hovered in the air, scanning the crowd to see if anyone recognized Luff yet, but everything looked normal. She then spotted Dena, who, judging by her posture, seemed to be waiting for someone. Further down the street, Libra noticed a suspicious figure heading straight for Dena. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was a demon in disguise. Swiftly, she swooped down and landed in front of him. "Back off immediately, or face hostile action," she commanded. The demon tried to play it cool like a regular citizen, but once Libra revealed she'd seen through his disguise, he dropped the act and lunged to attack. Naturally, Libra activated her defense protocols. Meanwhile, Aries sat at the edge of the city, staring at the place founded by one of the heroes who had betrayed Luff. He'd love nothing more than to burn it all to the ground, but he knew Luff wouldn't approve. So, he decided to take a walk to cool off. A few minutes later, the city emptied around him, a barrier suddenly forming, and then he found himself face to face with Migres. Back in the castle, Morak was holding a meeting with the other Lightwing, looking thoroughly exhausted. The Lightwing kept yelling at him to use his power to get rid of the Darkwinged. Originally, Morak had founded Galah Horn to give the Darkwinged a place where they wouldn't be looked down on. But then Parthinos kicked the Lightwinged out of Vanaheim, leaving them homeless, so Morak reluctantly welcomed them into the nation. Even though it wasn't their land to begin with, the Lightwing insisted on special privileges and continued persecuting the Darkwinged. Morak had tried handling things diplomatically, but no matter how many times he urged the White Wing to coexist with the Darkwinged, they kept pushing him to kick them out. He had no clue how to solve this mess and honestly doubted his ability to rule this nation. He felt like a total amateur compared to Luff, who had fought tooth and nail to become a great leader. Morak had success practically handed to him at birth, while Luff had sweat, blood, and probably a little bit of Darkwing grease to earn hers. In comparison, he saw himself as a bumbling fool. Meanwhile, Luff hovered outside the White Wing section, realizing the quickest way to fix things was to convince Morak to act. Elsewhere, Libra was in the middle of a showdown with Jupiter. She morphed her arm into a cannon and fired a blast at him, but Jupiter nimbly dodged. Observing his abilities, Libra concluded he must be an element user, capable of manipulating the wind with deadly precision. Jupiter confirmed it. At the same time, Karos was still trying to recruit Aries into the demon army to take revenge on the heroes. Aries, however, declined, explaining that there was no need to continue down that path. After all, Luff had returned. As soon as Karos hears that Luffas is back, he freezes. He can hardly believe it. But, thinking about it, it makes sense that Luffas was the one who defeated Mars. Not impossible at all. Aries tells Karos that it's time for him to return to Luffas' side and serve her once more. He says he can't return yet, he needs to eliminate her enemies first, otherwise they'll eventually turn on her again. Aries tries to reason with him, saying he doesn't have to go that far, but Karos is too pumped up to listen. With a flash, he teleports away to begin his ambitious, and slightly over-the-top, plan. Afterward, Aries pauses to think. Honestly, he hates the heroes just as much as Karos does. So, stopping their destruction isn't really on his to-do list. He decides to wait and see how the people of the Lightwing district behave before making his call. If they turn out to be the same racist jerks who caused Luffas so much grief, he'll let destruction do its thing. Meanwhile, in the streets of the Lightwing district, the person Dena has been waiting for still hasn't appeared. Growing impatient, she scans the crowd, and that's when she spots a man nearby who looks very suspicious. Dena figures this might be a perfect opportunity to gather some intel. She tails the suspicious man down the street until he slips into a dark alley. Turns out, he's one of the Lightwing trying to convince her to get rid of the Darkwinged. He tells his comrades that Merak refuses to side with them, so they'll have to take matters into their own hands and eliminate those filthy Darkwinged, even if it means getting their hands dirty. He adds that the Darkwinged are preparing for war. When asked how he knows this, he insists that Jupiter told him personally. The others ask where Jupiter is now, but the man shrugs. He was supposed to meet Jupiter today, but apparently, Jupiter decided to ghost him. The man suspects it has something to do with the wingless people who appeared recently. Dena has been eavesdropping the entire time. From what she's heard, it seems the nation is teetering on the edge of civil war. She's willing to bet that Jupiter is the one fanning the flames. Why he skipped the Lightwing meeting today is a mystery, but at least Dena now has valuable intel to share with Luffus. Meanwhile, back with Libra, she's still locked in battle against Jupiter. No matter how much wind Jupiter summons, he can't budge Libra's solid frame, not even a millimeter. The only reason Jupiter had been holding out so far was that he was fast enough to dodge all of Libra's attacks. Jupiter needed a plan, and fast. Realizing he couldn't beat Libra right now, he whipped up a massive gust of wind to kick up dust and obscure her vision, hoping to make a dramatic escape. Libra tried to clear the dust with a blast of wind, but it was already too late. Jupiter was gone. Later that day, everyone reconvened to share what they had learned. Dena informed Luffus that the Lightwing were preparing for war against the Darkwinged, likely stirred into action by Jupiter. Libra spoke up, explaining that she had faced one of the 7 demon luminaries, Jupiter, but despite her best efforts, he had slipped away. Luffus was surprised. Why would a demon try to destroy the city when it seemed perfectly capable of falling apart on its own? Knowing Jupiter would likely return, Libra asked Luffus to alchemize some homing bullets and missiles for her, as she was running low on ammo. Luffus agreed to make the ammunition later, but first, she turned to Aries to ask if anything had happened on his end. Aries, still undecided on whether the Heaven Wing should be destroyed, opted for a little white lie and told Luffus that nothing noteworthy had occurred. Luffus takes Aries' word for it and proceeds to share her observations from the Dark District. The people there harbor endless hatred for those from the Light District, and a civil war seems inevitable. On a brighter note, the Darkwinged have apparently erected a statue of Luffus in their temple, and worship her. Naturally, the others fully approve, and Libra even jokes that they should side with the Darkwings during the Civil War. Luffus quickly shuts that down. She has no intention of picking a side. If a civil war breaks out, the nation will crumble, giving demons a perfect opportunity to invade. To prevent that, she asks Libra to capture Jupiter the next time they meet. Libra hesitates, asking if that means she's barred from killing him. Luffus clarifies, they need him alive to testify in front of all the Heaven Wing. But, her top priority is Libra's safety, so she reminds her to be careful when confronting Jupiter. Later that night, Luffus is busy alchemizing more ammunition for Libra, pondering how things got so out of hand. She initially came only to meet Merak and figure out whether he was a player, but now she's stuck trying to stop a full-blown civil war. Meanwhile, in the forest, Jupiter is throwing a temper tantrum. With Libra around, he can't risk approaching the city. And if Libra is there, that must mean Luffus is nearby too, seriously jeopardizing his grand plan to destroy the city. Just then, Venus shows up, asking why he's so upset. Jupiter isn't thrilled with her patronizing tone, especially since she did nothing to help while he was being attacked by Libra. Venus insists she'd been waiting at their scheduled meeting point the entire time. Jupiter never showed up, so it's not her fault. Jupiter grumbles, asking why she led Luffus to the city center in the first place. Venus shrugs, she's nowhere near strong enough to stop Luffus, so there was nothing she could do to prevent her from entering the city. Jupiter can't argue with that logic, but he's still fuming. But with Libra now on the lookout, he can't get near the city without being spotted. Venus admits she feels a little guilty for not helping earlier, but she's offering to assist now. She can distract Libra for about 20 minutes, giving Jupiter a small window to execute his plan, so he better work fast. Meanwhile, back in the city, Luffus has just finished alchemizing the ammunition Libra requested. She calls Libra over to take what she needs, but Libra has a creative method, lifting her skirt over the ammo so it somehow all fits. Luffus has no idea how it works, but hey, magic, right? Libra thanks Luffus and promises that the next time she sees Jupiter, he won't escape. Then she asks about Dena, noting her sensors indicate that Dena is no longer within a 100 kilometers radius of the city. Luffus reassures her not to worry, Dena can teleport anywhere she wants, so she should be back any moment. Libra has a few questions. She wonders if the teleportation magic Luffus mentioned is actually Zate. As far as Libra knows, there's no other spell in this world that allows teleportation. Only Zate had it, or at least, the spell called Escape in the Zate game. And when Lufas starts thinking seriously about it, her head begins to ache. Teleportation magic didn't exist 200 years ago, and a convenient spell like that never existed in the Zate online game either. In the game, escape was just a term, a setting mechanic. No one could actually learn it. So if Dena can learn and freely use such a spell, what does that make her? Lufas is baffled that she's only realizing this now. Why hadn't she questioned Dena's origins and abilities sooner? She probably should have. A short while later, Dena arrives at the inn, but to her surprise, the room is completely dark. Suddenly, she's pulled into a chair with a spotlight on her, ready for interrogation. After all, Dena has both memory manipulation and teleportation magic, plus an unusually suspicious amount of talent and knowledge for someone who used to be an NPC. There's no way Lufas could have forgotten her if she'd been in the original game. First, Lufas asks if Dena's teleportation magic is really the escape spell. Dena doesn't deny it, which shocks Lufas, though in hindsight, she probably should have seen it coming. Dena has never really tried to hide her abilities, and Lufas recalls that the escape spell was used to summon her to this world. So, it's not like the spell is impossible for normal people, but still, it's odd that Dena can use it at will. Lufas asks about her abilities, but Dena gets offended, yelling that she worked hard for the last 200 years to stand out more, and she's clearly serious about it. Seeing she's not going to get a straight answer, Lufas decides to drop the investigation for now. Dena breathes a sigh of relief that suspicion has passed. Once the interrogation is over, Dena casually mentions that she could transport Libra anywhere using her Zate ability. Lufas is surprised. Earlier, Dena said transporting others was complicated. But she explains that since Libra is technically a golem, she counts as an object, so the restrictions don't apply. In fact, she suggests testing it right away. Libra sees no problem with this. Jupiter hasn't made a move on the city, and it's unlikely he'd attack in such a short window. She promises to be back in roughly 10 minutes. And with that, both Libra and Dena teleport away. But, not even 10 seconds later, Jupiter launches a surprise attack, destroying part of the Lightwing district.